Okay, we should be good.
Thanks, Lou. Okay, so we'll start the planning and zoning meeting. Today is April 6th. It's our regular meeting. We'll start with planning and zoning roll call. Where you're at.
Amanda Podmore.
Marcia Haydenfeld.
Melissa Eggy.
Ed Dobson.
Town council.
Lou Ann Hook.
Thanks, Lou. We'll go on to approval of minutes. I'll share my screen. We'll start with the regular meeting and then we'll do the special meeting. Was there any discussion on these minutes?
I know I did.
Oh, sorry. Hang on just a minute, Ed. What was that, Marcia?
No, that's exactly what I was going to say. As I remember, I didn't add anything, and seeing none, I was going to motion. However, Ed beat me to it, so I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes from 3/16, say aye.
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 I'll abstain. I wasn't there.
Thanks, Melissa. Motion passes. 4 approved, 1 abstained. Okay, and then I will stop sharing this and share special meeting minutes. Let me do it in the right order though. Okay. Any discussion on these minutes?
I think I put something on a correction, but now I'm not seeing it. There was, I think I did it in the folder instead of on this.
Was it just a typo or was it an actual like substance?
Well, no, I think it was a typo sent to town. Hold on. This one would be sent to town. Oh, there it is. Just that paragraph, the commission reviewed the setback regulations. The last sentence says, the last of the sentence of that paragraph says, commercial zones would be sent to town council and the council. And I believe that's just a little typo-ish thing. So it would be sent to town council, period.
Perfect. Thanks, Marcia. Melissa, can you make that change for us?
Yeah, I'm doing that in the copy.
Thank you, Mia. Any further discussion?
I would just say really nice minutes for both of these once again. Thanks, Aaron.
I'm sorry, Amanda, I can't hear you. What? I mean, I can hear it, but just barely. Was it my speed?
Sorry. My internet's been bad today. I said really nice minutes. Thanks, Aaron.
Oh, and I completely agree with you. And on that note, I would move to approve the special meeting minutes from March 24th, 2022 as corrected.
Second.
All in favor of approving, say aye.
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 I
Excellent.
agree.
Minutes approved. Okay, awesome. Okay, and then we have next on the agenda is public citizens to be heard. So if anyone would like to make a public comment, we'll give you about 3 minutes per person at this time. Go ahead, Marcia.
I just want to let you know I had sent you all an email with a request for information from someone who is considering purchase of the Desert Rose Inn and wanted more information. As you might have seen in that email, I suggested that person come to a meeting to tell us what it is they're trying to find out. That person responded to me just now and said, I'm sorry, we're out of town and cannot come to that meeting tonight. Can you meet with me on Friday, or is there no point and I should just come to a meeting? I'm asking the team or the Planning and Zoning Commission or Sarah to tell me what you'd like to suggest to this person.
So full disclosure, Marcia, I'm trying to read my email right now, so I know exactly what they're.
Okay.
Did they have any specific requests that planning and zoning, or they just said they had questions?
There you go. They had questions about whether they can put more cabins and do things like that. So it is my contention that they go on the agenda with these questions so we can actually answer them, as opposed to me going, well, we have to check as a board what the laws tell us, because as we all know, we read them better together than we do apart. So having said that, my answer was going to be to this woman, I am happy that you're visiting Bluff, but would much prefer that you attend a meeting and send us your questions in advance or whatever, and then as a meeting we could answer together. And if you'd like that suggestion, I'm happy to do that after our meeting.
So Marcia, that's totally fine with me. If there are planning and zoning related questions, like questions that we as a commission need to answer, if there are things that you could readily answer for her, then that's fine too. But also whatever, I'm going to leave this to you as what is capable of your time, because it's also, you are a public servant, but it's also, we need to be respectful of your time. This time on Wednesday evenings is set aside for that kind of discussion. So I'll leave it to you how in depth you want to go. Yes, I think pushing her to one of these meetings is more appropriate.
Okay, that's great. And I might just say, I'm happy to say hi on Friday and sort of point to where we are and what paperwork you need, where the paperwork is or something, but that in fact, the meeting would be the best place for the questions. Okay, yes. That's how I'll answer. Thank you. That's
Thank
what
you,
I'll
Marcia. Any other public comments? Okay, I'm going to close this session and I'm going to close my door. So give me just a moment to do that.
Oh, that Quinn, she's just too much.
She's quite chatty. Sorry, I was waiting for Britt to get home so that I could hear her, but now we don't need to hear her. Okay, so then we'll go forward in the agenda to land use clearances. I did not receive anything unless you guys did.
There's an update.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. You guys were always catching. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Sorry,
Yeah, this is
town council.
Yes, this is Luann Hook. So we had a meeting last night, and we canceled next Wednesday's or next Tuesday's meeting. So we do not have one next Tuesday. One of the interesting, I try to just put what's mostly interesting to planning and zoning, but at the CCC, our old school, they've received a $100,000 grant that will go towards fire suppression. So that's good news that's going to keep moving forward. We might need another matching grant, and that's Jim Sayers is working with CIB, and that's one of the ones that's the highest priority on our CIB list of priorities. We hired Craig Benally to help with our NetForce YouTubing, so you don't have to watch me run back and forth, and he can cover, and I can be in the meetings and whatnot. And he's real knowledgeable about stuff and can just run his way through. There's going to be a work session on April 21st. We have a meeting the 19th, and then the work session is the 21st, and then that's when we'll look at the lighting ordinance and the zoning ordinance. Work through your suggestions and all that sort of stuff. There's a CDBG public hearing on May 17th, and that is the one that's like the second public hearing concerning the changes at the community center, as far as like the ADA and food pantry and that kind of thing. So that's May 17th. And then there's a new local mayors group. I don't know what they call themselves, but Blanding, Monticello, Castle Valley, Bluff, Blanding. Anyway, they all have gotten together. So they will work on things together. And I think that's all I had on my list, but do you have any? Oh, there was one other, I'm sorry. The alleys, it was on our agenda to deed over an alley, and that was tabled to get more information. So nothing happened on that topic.
Luann, can you tell me the date again for reviewing the zoning and dark sky?
That is April 21st. It's
And
a
that-
Tuesday.
Is that a work session or?
Yes, it'll be a work session. It'll be in the morning. I think we scheduled it for 10 o'clock, 10:30 possibly. I think it was 10. Sorry, I should have that written down. But
No, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure I had the right date. Okay, thank you, Luann.
you're welcome.
Other questions from commissioners?
And thanks for sending that invite. That did help. If you'll just put that on, I guess it'll always be on there.
I think now that we've saved that address to the Google Calendar, that's not true. Send me a reminder next meeting so that I'll add it to that invite, and then we should always be sending it to you.
Okay, and I think as long as I have one on the computer, I can just log into that one, but it needs to be a specific one. And my theory, I don't know if it's right, but I believe that Google Meets is protecting meetings so that who's ever hosting it has to let you in. So I can get in eventually after you let me in, but that's why I had to log in through Office because it got an invitation. So I would log in. So that's why it was complicated last time. So this helped because I can log in on the computer there and Craig can, and then I just can get in early.
No, it's perfect. And the way we have Google Meet set up is that so long as you are, so long as you have the link, you should be able to join readily. So then if you're like, if you're having to type it into the meeting, then we have to let you in. But if you have the link, you really get it.
We should check Marcia's because I always have to let Marcia in.
Interesting. And are you going through the
And I
Google
let
Calendar?
Carrie in. I let a few people in.
I agree. I do have to be allowed. It says someone will let you in.
Mm-hmm.
Curious.
So either she needs the straight invite, but anyway, but
Okay.
I was able to get in, so
Perfect.
thank you.
No worries. Thanks, Luann.
You're welcome.
Okay, so now we'll go on to land use clearances. I didn't receive any. Did anyone else receive them? No? Okay.
I was just curious. I still haven't heard from Chris McNamee about the questions relating to Steve Simpson's land use clearance, so I just kind of wondered if there was an update on any of that aside from Chris McNamee. I mean, I know we got the letter from Steve, but anything else?
Nope. And basically, Steve, I told him I would send that around to the commission and we'd add it to his paperwork. And he just said, when it's when town council has made a decision, he'll bring the land use clearance back up. But until then, they're just kind of, it sounds like they're moving forward with the purchase of the property. And then they'll kind of go from there.
And
we have not heard anything on town council either on those specifics.
so town council isn't taking up the idea of single-family dwelling in C3 kind of thing, right? Until we hear.
Not yet, but that will be on that Thursday meeting. That's part of what will be worked over then, and hopefully we'll have something back from the attorney.
From Chris.
Yep. Exactly.
Good question, Amanda. Thanks, Luann. Anything else on land use clearances? Okay. On to sign permit. Carrie Harris, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah. Your application looked good. It looks like you're just replacing that centerpiece on the sign. Commissioners, did you have any questions for Carrie?
Motion to approve.
Ed, you cracked me up. Hang on just a minute, Ed. Commissioners, do you have
No,
any
now it opens up for discussion. You got a motion on the table.
I'll second it for discussion purposes because I have one quick question for clarification.
Go ahead, Marcia.
Okay, so I understand you're just replacing the face and that's all well and good and 4x8 certainly fits. Do you know how high it is? How tall it is? That's the only. The only
I
measurement
don't know. I would guess that it's not higher.
looks about 12, I don't know, 12 feet, 50, 40.
Yeah.
Because
It's whatever is there now, the frame that's there now.
right, that you're going to leave that. Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's just barely over the wall that's right next to Cadillac Ranch.
Right. I just wanted to make, that was my only question, was the measurements. And I said to Sarah, we need to ask her for measurements. And then I read it again and the measurement was there, but the height wasn't. So it's like, I'm just confused. Do we talk about height in our actual measurements?
I didn't see anything there in the regulation, but I'm not familiar.
Yeah. Okay. Signs allowed 4 by. Yeah.
I don't know that it specifies that, actually.
Yeah, and I'm wanting to make it a reflective sign so that it never needs any kind of lighting anywhere near it.
That was going to be my other question for you, Carrie, was how it was lit. But that's actually really good, because if you don't have to light it, then it meets lighting ordinance. So good job.
Right. Thank you.
And I'm reading here and don't see a height except for development signs. So whatever that means. So I guess there's, never mind my question.
Okay.
So, and just for the record, Aaron was asking, so this is replacing a sign that's at Cadillac Ranch, and it's not changing the structure, just changing the inner panel. Any further discussion from commissioners?
Move the question.
I'm sorry, Ed, what was that?
I said I move the question.
Call the question.
I call the question. Same thing.
Okay. So there's a motion on the table to approve. All in favor of approving this this sign permit, say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Carrie, your sign permit is approved. You are good to replace it. I think I have to sign it. So let me sign it, and then I will email it to you unless you need a physical copy.
I don't need a physical copy. Yeah. And
Then I will sign it and email it to you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey.
Good luck with your sign.
Thanks. We're excited to be coming to Bluff and working.
Yeah,
on
welcome
the
to Bluff.
this year. So yeah. Thanks. Okay. Bye.
Bye. Have a good evening.
You too.
Okay, let's move on to our next item, which is 2022 goals. I sent around our 2021 goals, and I'm going to share that on the screen just so you guys have an idea. These are not things we have to work on this year. These are just things that we had talked about working on last year, some of which we completed, some of which we didn't. But I was going to use it as a starting point for discussion. Thoughts, questions? Anybody want to start?
Sarah, I just have a quick question. I'm wondering, and this could be done in several ways, but I'm wondering if this might be helpful if we create a second document that talks about 2022 goals. I'm just throwing out an idea. Take this, copy this document, then I'll follow along in 2022 and y'all can too. And just sort of like transfer things, delete things, edit things, add, modify into the 2022 document. Or other suggestions, let me know.
I think that's great, Melissa, if you want to do that real fast and then share it with us.
Yep, will do. Do you know where this document is in the drive? And I'll share the copy to that spot.
Good question. I want to say administration maybe, but to be honest, I have to search it by goals. So let me see if I can trace it back.
Okay, I'll stay live with you on the audio until we get it to a common place.
It's one of the few things I wish it would tell you right from the beginning, right? Like where does it?
I see the general plan. P&Z goals 2021, and now you can see my copy is in there.
Okay.
Are you guys able to see that? I'm going to rename it
Yeah.
to, I'll just call this formatting P&Z Goal 2022, and I'll leave it in the same folder for now. Is that okay?
Yeah, Melissa, could you just copy the link and drop it in chat so it's easy for people to get there?
I'm working in another.
Okay.
I can do it though. I'll do that.
No, that's all right. Let me try to find it.
Oh, I can copy the link.
Amanda's on it.
Drop it in the chat.
And then I'm just going to follow along kind of the same way we do with minutes, and I will just delete things. Do you guys want me to keep it as suggestions, or do you want me to keep it at like?
I'd say make it edits.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be in that document then.
Okay, I'm going to share this document with me.
I could go first with my general thoughts if that helps.
Yes, go right ahead, Amanda.
I think for 2022, I know we've like bitten off a lot in the last couple years, so I'm hoping 2022, like we already accomplished something really big this year with the zoning ordinance update. So for 2022, I think it'd be nice to focus on the idling ordinance. I think that should be relatively easy. I think maybe we could do some research on RVs and like solutions for, or like what other towns do, but not necessarily draft an ordinance this year. And I think we could look at like what forms are needed that we need to create. So idling, research on RVs, and forms are sort of my top things. I'm not quite sure about the noise ordinance. That might be a priority for town council. It might be something they want to take on. So I just would want more clarity on the noise ordinance, which we have in a draft form, but will definitely take a lot of work.
Yeah. Thanks, Amanda. Go ahead, Marcia.
Those are great, Amanda, and a little more specific than I was able to get, but it follows some of my thoughts, which were much the same as you just did. These were my general thoughts, and they were completing the update of the existing ordinances, meaning that should we, for example, look at the subdivision ordinance and see if we find anything that we need to clean up or change that we've run up against. And we haven't had a lot of subdivision except for the couple of questions of subdividing land. But I think even those led us to look at a couple of questionable things in our code. So that was one thought. What you mentioned about like the idling ordinance and such, I'm still a proponent of let's let the town council get their work done and or come up with enforcement code rules before we just make more paperwork that sort of goes nowhere. Because if we've seen incidences of things going on that haven't been controlled yet, why give them more that they can't control? So I would like to set aside some of those. The other one that I put on here was I would like a little more training / communication of the legal aspect of what we do. As we've had to call Chris a few times, I don't know if we've all, I mean, over the years, I've taken plenty of P&Z training, but I'm wondering in the confines of what the town is doing, what Chris couldn't if Chris couldn't put together some little presentation for us of some legal training aspects of what we do, just to help us interpret. So those are my thoughts, and I actually kind of like Amanda's, so I want those too.
We can do both. Melissa, Ed?
Sounds good.
Thanks, Ed.
I have a couple. First, I would like us, I agree with Amanda that we've already done some great things this year, and I feel like we have put in a lot of time lately. A couple things I'd like to talk through. I was looking through this document, knowing this was sort of our guidance from prior sessions together, making sure we're not missing anything. So I think that would be my recommendation, is that we just talk through this document, our prior notes. Second, I'd love to work some more on planning in a long-term way. And I know we've talked about this in a general way, which I think is going to require a lot of work. And I'm not sure I have the capacity for that, nor do I know that anyone else here does. But I think this is essential to the work we're doing in so many ways. And I think the most important at this time, there are two things. One, knowing that water is a major issue in the desert, and at present is on top of mind for so many people. I think we need to think in a long-term way about what that looks like for our lives, not just our terms, but I'm talking about in a decade or 10 decades, etc. So I think we need to think about that in a big way. Second, related is, again, sort of related to water, related to our town. What is it that we can sustain in terms of lifestyle here? And I think of that also as a planning piece, which again, back to, do we have the capacity and expertise to address this? I don't know that we do, but I think we should be thinking about this in what we're doing. My example that I'll provide is, and I'm just throwing this out as an example, and I'm not in any way trying to make a statement that we should or shouldn't do this, but let's just say we have an abundance of land use clearances, which turns into building permits, which turns into more structures in this town. Do we have the resources to sustain more people building and living here? And I'm talking about this in a planning way, and I'm not in any way trying to say we should not be allowing that. I'm saying let's think about how we do this in a way that preserves our quality of life and also preserves the environment on which we're dependent. My next is probably beyond our work as planning and zoning, but I think it's incumbent upon us to look at, in our general plan, we chose to include a land acknowledgement, and I think we need to consider as a town what we're doing beyond just saying we exist on ancestral lands, and consider what we're doing as a town to, at minimum, be a welcoming place. Second, we need to be doing way more when it comes to respecting the land that we're on. And this is bigger than probably an ordinance, but I think it's something we need to look at as a town. And what are we doing beyond just stating that we are existing here on ancestral lands? I had one more, but I need to look at my notes. I'll stop right there. And I don't mean to be too philosophical, but I think we need to consider the larger impact of our work in several ways. I will also second the piece about enforcement. It feels like we can put words on paper all day long, but if we can't do anything about that, I question why we're doing it, because I know people are putting in a lot of time and setting aside time for these meetings also. So I question that. And that's probably beyond us with town council's expertise involved. But I think as a town, we need to consider that. I'll pause right there. Thanks.
Thanks, Melissa. Go ahead.
I have
full
support for all of that. And it just occurred to me that the Iroquois had the 7 generations principle. They would look that far ahead. It's hard to believe that we've never come to something like that. It's time.
Thank you, Ed. Go ahead, Marcia.
Yes, I understand Melissa's discussion with regard to things like long-range planning, water, and things like that. I know that Melissa, as often happens, Melissa and I are on the same page mentally or politically, as it were, but I just would remind everyone that it's only planning and zoning, and these ideas need to come through from the town council. However, having said that, perhaps one of the meetings we could have would be a presentation from the water board. when they used to talk to the service area, when I was the service area clerk for a long time, the water board would make a presentation of, we've got this many wells and this much water, which of course nobody knows how much is in the aquifer. But it might help exactly what Melissa is talking about, which is how do we then plan for what's going to be used? If the water board says, by the way, there's no room for pipes, we have to go, whoops, what? So I wouldn't mind some sort of little joint meeting request of a presentation in the vein that, Melissa's talking about, understanding where we are.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Martha.
Martha. Can I add my final thought? I found it. Again, I agree with Marcia that maybe some of these things are beyond the Planning and Zoning Commission. The final thing I'll add is considering as a town, when we talk about affordable housing, when we talk about living and sustaining our lives here, when we have folks who occupy a residence only part-time or way less than part-time here, I would like a concerted effort to think through, address what it means to be a property owner, but not really reside here, not vote here, not here, and wondering if there's, I'm sure there's many ways to do this, but I brought it up before many meetings ago where we talk about like an occupancy tax, which I know makes people crazy when we live in this capitalistic society, but I also think we need to consider when we're just allowing people to build and build and build, but they're not really part of the community, what that does then to our community when we basically just have people owning property but are partially contributing. So perhaps this is bigger than planning and zoning, but I think ties into how we're using land, how we're using the space that we have. And I think we could do this creatively, and I honestly don't know what the solution is, but I think we should be thinking this through when we're approving like dwellings that nobody lives in, but that are taking resources and occupying space. Just my thoughts.
Thank you, Melissa.
This is Amanda. I really agree with everything Melissa said in concept, and I like the idea of having a more like a planning 2.0 where we look beyond our original land acknowledgement statement and think about how we can be a more inclusive, welcoming community, how we can take action on something like the land acknowledgement. Maybe we bring that to town council and do like a joint committee sort of thing. But yeah, some of the things, like the tax that you talked about was, I just like some of that is outside of our purview. So I wonder how we address that as a commission, or I'm not sure how to proceed on some of those action items or some of those suggestions.
Yeah, I don't know that it is our work as planning and zoning, but I think it's something we should be considering. And if it is something we take to town, or if we don't agree, that's cool too. Like, I'll just voice that here as things that I think tie into the larger picture of planning, and respect completely that if it's not our work, it's not our work.
Thank you guys for an excellent discussion. I think there's a lot of good thoughts here. Some of these, Melissa, I would agree. Maybe we should even try to have a joint session with town council and present some of these ideas. Because one of the things, just for example, going back to like the noise ordinance, that's come up quite often in public comment. There seems to be a desire for something like that. And yet I don't think we have the enforcement for something like a noise ordinance. So I think it might be maybe one of the things we should look at is how do we maybe talk through some of these ideas that we have with town council, because once again, if town council isn't going to approve it, it's not a good thing for us to take the time and energy to work on. So we don't need to work on a noise ordinance if it's not going to make it through the council. And then so I guess what I would like to do, and kind of following Melissa's suggestion of kind of walking through this document and seeing if there's anything that we need to keep. and then we can kind of focus more on the general thoughts we've had so far. So with, say, for example, item 1, other than noise, we've done this part, right? Like, it's been approved, we've taken care of this, and I want to kind of put a pin in noise because I want guidance from town council on that. So I feel like that one is more or less completed, with the exception of we have an idling ordinance we could take through this as well. I would love for us personally to continue working on the night sky. This is, once again, kind of, as Marcia's pointed out, is kind of beyond planning and zoning. It's not for us to enforce or identify this stuff for compliance, but it is an issue that we know that our neighbors are having and business owners are having. I will say that town council has identified a committee, so there is now a dark sky committee that is working on this. And we did have, not maybe as thorough a seminar as we would have liked, but we did have a seminar on lighting. That has happened. And then it sounds like town council is going to review the ordinance here on the 21st. So I think some of these things are moving along. I don't know if there's really a place for planning and zoning in this any longer, other than as citizens, if there's ways that you would like to contribute to getting this kind of finished up and move forward, that would be super great. Enforcement, other than here's my only suggestion, enforcement definitely comes from town council. We can't do anything about that. But if we wanted to make any sort of suggestions for enforcement, I mean, that would be something we could do. That's kind of, I'm going to leave that kind of on the table if we want to, like, take any time to do research or recommendations. Marcia's shaking her head no.
It's okay. You keep going, because when I shake my head, it's like I have to decide what that means to me. So just go for it.
And then I would say with number 4, we've done a little bit of this, right? We've tried to put in definitions for an RV park. But if we wanted to go further into, like, defining dwellings and where things are allowed, we can do that too. And then I guess 5, this, maybe Amanda, this is kind of where you were talking about too, like with the idea of forms. We could look through and see, like, what have we done or need to do that are the resulting policies in the general plan. So that would be a big task, but could be something we kind of peck away at. All right, so any thoughts or opinions on what we've done in the past and what we need to do going forward? Marcia.
I thought that was great, Sarah. I think you foreshortened everything that we've just talked about. I have one comment, and that is actually part of my report. I don't know if any of you, because we couldn't tell on the screen, attended the legislative update the other day on Zoom. It was actually last Wednesday during the day, because there was one interesting sentence that I wrote down, and it was that towns are not compelled to follow the general plan that they write. I thought that was an interesting point. It is that you must have a general plan, and those who are intelligent and well-oiled planning and zoning machines will in fact follow, the general plan, but we are not required by law to do so as of this time. And the state, I was surprised by it. This state is one of very few that don't make you follow it. And they probably will change that at some point. But the only reason I bring it up is I think it's great to use the general plan for us to, move these things along, but we don't have to follow it to the letter. Just threw that out there.
Thanks, Marcia. Was there anything else in that meeting that we want to talk about now, or do you want to save it for other? Okay. So I guess let's do this. Based on what we've done in the past, based on kind of our general thoughts, what do we want to, if you could pick 2 things, because right, we're gonna try to make this relatively feasible because we're already in April. You could pick 2 things. What is it that you guys want to work on? And it doesn't have to be the same 2 things. We'll try to come to consensus on some things. Amanda, you're giving me kind of a funny look.
Oh, I'm and it's tiny. I'm sorry. That was my deep, pensive look. Sorry.
We're all looking weird at the screen or shaking our heads, but you keep telling us we are.
I'm going to vote for my number 1 is to double check and make sure we have all the forms, and then I will give my 2 to the group. But I think forms is the one that would help everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. I would agree. I think forms is definitely something we should look at, make sure that we have the correct forms we need. Because what we've found is often we have to make the form when someone requests it. And you're just like, oh, yeah, that's right. We don't have a form for this.
Does the town have a fee schedule yet of what they're charging people to do these forms? Because that would be a good thing to have a line for on each of the forms.
Luann, can you speak to that?
Luann, are you there?
I am. And no, there's no fee schedule yet. We've discussed it and different things that, want to have fees, but other than the business license and the short-term rental license, there's a couple fees to that. That's all.
So if we in fact were to put together a final form registry of what we have and what we need, then we could do some sort of thing like, here they are, put your fees, put the fees together to go with them. That might be actually a good back and forth.
Yeah, I think that was the idea, was to make the forms with the fee on it, and then as it becomes a requirement, then you would be able to add that to the form, but have the spot on there, the empty blank on your form.
Thanks, you. Thanks, Marcia.
My top 2 are forms and also like with the town manager being hired, that they could be good to work with to we have a system for where there's paper copies, where there's electronic copies, all that. And then the second is idling ordinance, just wrapping that up for recommendation, and specifically creating no idling zones for large semis. So those are my 2.
Thanks, Amanda.
Sorry.
I would do my 2 as forms. I really like that. And my second one would be a coordination of events of an attorney meeting, a water meeting, and a town council meeting. In other words, working meetings, I guess it would be, so that we had intercommission cooperation, just knowing what's next and how we do this, so that as these questions come up, everyone's on the same table.
Excellent. Thank you, Marcia. Ed?
I'm good.
Okay. Okay. So I think these are good. I think if we were to go through everything to find the needed forms, essentially set up a list of forms so town council would know what forms we have and what fees they could maybe count. I do agree that idling ordinance is nearly done. Let's go ahead and just finish it. Have it done. And then I think it would be good to have some of these working meetings. And I think, Melissa, that would be a good place for us to maybe discuss what more long-term planning and sustainability would be. Because I think you're right. I think we have spent the last 4 years really trying to build our town, and we've put a lot of thought into that, but then where do we go from here? What else needs to be done, and how do we do that with some long-term planning? So I think that would be smart. And if there's ways that we as planning and zoning can help with that, whether there are efforts happening in town, are there things we can do to help with those things? Does that feel like a good list? We've got 3 pretty big items. Are there any items? Okay.
I like it because it'll lead to other things. Like if we have some coordinated meetings and the water department says, you might look at this for subdivisions or something, we, would be working on things. I like the way Melissa is listing them too.
Yeah, and I think, Melissa, it's fine to leave our general thoughts in here too, because it's a good, at this point, I think if you wanted to delete the goals from 2021, you could, since we have that in another document, unless there's something you guys want to pull over from that, what's remaining. Because a lot of that, the RV work, we could continue, but enforcement's not us. And as Melissa says, yeah, grants for night sky is not us. That's more me, and that's personal. It's not planning and zoning. So I think we can delete it. Are you guys comfortable with that? I'm getting nods, meaning thumbs up. I think you're good to delete, Miss Melissa. Thank you. Okay. So let's see. We've got roughly 15 minutes left. These can be kind of our items for the next agenda. I can send well, maybe, Luann, would you like for us to send an email, or do you want to take this back to town council? Just a request for like a joint meeting at some point?
I think it's a good idea for you to send an email, just because it can go out sooner. We're not meeting until I think it's the 19th.
Okay.
So get your thoughts out there, and then I can remind them that we've got that email and the request when I do the update.
Perfect. All right. I'll send an email to town council requesting a joint meeting and requesting maybe like some of this legal guidance, maybe a training, and then the water board. Okay. Does that sound good to commissioners?
Some could be overlapping too. In other words, perhaps the town, and I don't know what they do with the water board, but perhaps the town would like to listen in on the day that we get a presentation from the water board, and we all listen. Mm-hmm. And that just helps us all, I just like the idea that we all talk together about these things.
I think it sounds great. I'd like to also add, if it's possible, that we put the joint meetings at this current time slot. That's my preference. And if that does not work for everyone else, totally cool. We can doodle poll or other, whatever we need to do. But I would just request, to the best of our ability, to kind of keep these time slots.
Thank you, Melissa.
Totally agree. Yeah.
I do as well. Awesome. Do we feel satisfied? Can I move to our next agenda item?
Do you want us to vote on accepting goals, or would you like them typed up in a different manner, or just that we're okay?
I'm okay either way. I don't think we need to change the format. I think this is sufficient as far as the way they look. If you guys want to vote on them, we can vote on them. I'm also comfortable with them just being consensus. What do you guys want to do?
I make a motion that we accept the goals as listed and the addendum of general thoughts to keep us motivated.
Second.
Excellent. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. I'm going to stop sharing the screen. And I just wanted to very quickly, and I'm going to throw this out to Luann as well, but just very quickly kind of touch base about, it's been a while since we've talked about virtual versus in-person meetings. And just kind of see, I want to check the temperature of the room. How are we feeling virtual versus in-person? You guys want me to go first? I like being virtual.
I like virtual.
Marcia?
Well, what I was going to say is that I think we all like virtual because it takes minutes off of the meeting on both ends because you're already home, and because it's just easy. However, my other brain is telling me that stepping out into the public as doing our public work means we have to be out there, or should mean. So I am happy staying home, but I also understand if it's time to start meeting again.
Luann, what's the town council doing currently?
We are still meeting virtually. I come to the community center and have been playing with the YouTube. So now, like right now, I've checked it in you're live on YouTube. It's just like 15 seconds delayed. So a lot more people can participate that way. In order to come to a meeting, they still would have to do the login and beyond. But like your signed person, she came and signed in. So it's, yeah, I don't know. We haven't discussed going back to in person really at all. I thought we'd try a little hybrid thing, but so far that's not happening.
So, Luann, another question I'd like to ask you. I appreciate you going to the community center. It's awesome that you're live streaming. Is that something that we need to, as planning zoning, need to learn and take from you? Like,
no, we approved Craig to be able to do your meetings also, and if I knew more about it, I'm pretty sure he can do this version from home.
okay.
I'm pretty sure if he logs in to that same Gmail address, I think he can do it from there, but I'll experiment with that a little bit. And if so, it's easy for him just to do the live stream. I think it would be good at some point to know how to do it, because in like the public hearings, it's probably good to have somebody here. That's just my opinion. I don't know. I know we get a lot more audience participation. When we were doing it just regular meetings, we get one person show up, one or two maybe. And now we get, 15.
Yeah.
So, and there's public comment. We've switched that to where we have a public comment at the front like you all are doing. So there's time to mix in, and times have changed with COVID and the whole virtual. Everybody's a little more comfortable with all of this. So that's what we're doing, and it's not that we haven't discussed it lately. So
thanks, Luann.
Yep. Welcome.
Maybe,
Marcia.
Sure.
maybe,
Oh.
well, maybe, I'm sorry, Melissa, go ahead. Go ahead, Melissa.
Thanks. I'm going to agree with what Marcia said completely, and also say I think what we're doing needs to be aligned with what town council is doing. If they're going to stay this way, I think we should be aligned in that. And if they're going to go in person, I think we need to be aligned. I'd also like to request that I think everyone here seems very responsive in this way. I know a lot of us travel a lot or for work or in other places, and I know that we will continue to need a virtual option, this hybrid option. I'd just like to put that on the table too, to continue to have this as an option, not only for ourselves, but I think just as what was said for community members as well.
And one of the things that I'm working on is being able to sit here in the community center and see the screen on the screen on the stage, to be able to see your screen. So it's close to that. But that way, if somebody comes in person, all they do is hear, they need to be able to see the meeting. And so that way you could do both. You could have virtual and you could have somebody here, even if just one person is here. Somebody could still come in person, come up and talk to the computer that's here, and be able to see everybody else.
Yeah.
That's sort of the hybrid. That's the hybrid, and it's close to being able to do that.
Thanks, Luann. So I agree. We definitely need to keep a hybrid option, because I know that, yes, the commissioners won't always be in Bluff. So we need to make sure that we have that flexibility. So I guess I'm right now, maybe we just stay virtual for the next meeting. And then maybe town council will, because I do agree, Melissa, we should do what town council is doing. If town council is going to be virtual, we should be virtual. And then maybe if and when town council moves to hybrid, we look at moving to a hybrid. And even if that means only part of us are at the community center, like 2 or 3 of us are there versus the entire meeting. I don't know. We can work on it. But we'll stay virtual until town council makes a change. How does that sound? Getting thumbs up from Marcia.
Good.
Okay, thanks,
Sounds
Amanda.
Sounds good.
Okay, all right, and then we'll keep it this way, and then we'll check in later as we go along and see what else we might want to change. Items for our next agenda. Right, moving on to our next agenda item. Items for our next agenda.
I saw that email come in that Ann forwarded us about Scenic Utah and alignment of our sign ordinance with their recommendations. And I wondered if we should put that on an agenda, just like we all review their language and
I think
it takes
that's smart.
Was that the billboard one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good idea.
Thanks, Amanda. I think that would be good. Anything else for our next meeting?
Could be a short one.
We deserve a short one every now and again.
What did we decide to do about Desert Rose signs?
I'm gonna hold off on that one because that's something we need to talk to town council about. That's an enforcement issue.
Exactly.
Oh, but we could, with the person that emailed us about buying Desert Rose, we could invite them to the next meeting.
Oh,
Right.
that would be
Let Desert Rose in, the people who want to buy it, they'll be informed to get on the agenda with their questions. I will do that after the meeting. So if that's the one you meant, that's fine.
Yeah.
The sign information that was given to us by a citizen, I followed up with the email to you guys and I included town council because I believe that that's a town council answer.
Did we cover it, Ed?
Okay.
All right. Anything else? Let's jump down. We got 3 minutes. Let's jump down to other. Marcia, you had some things you wanted to update us.
I just wanted to update because I did go ahead and get online for the Utah League of City and Town legislative update, which they do every year at the end of the legislative session to tell us as P&Z people or town council people what the legislature did to us this year. So I don't know if any of you were on it. I don't know if town council. I just hit a couple of highlights that meant something to us. So the first one was affordable housing stuff is going hot and heavy, as one can imagine, and one hears on the news, but towns don't need to meet any of that. It is for the cities. And therefore, while our town council will have to pay attention to anything that they're supposed to report or act on, we as P&Z are not in the requirements of doing anything about affordable housing per se. It's really tied into all these interesting things about transportation corridors and SAPs, which are station area plans, like where you're going to have the train station in order to build a subdivision, things like that. We don't have that. So it is going on, but it's happening in big stuff for the state, and the town will just pay attention to little things that might go on. Utah towns are not required to follow the general plan. Totally interesting to me because I thought we had to. Instead, we're suggested to. Public hearing. Oh, the public hearings notice that we sent out from now on, they have to include the summary of the changes we're making. So our cute little listing of all the things that you're supposed to look up would actually have to have little definitions by them of what we're doing. So we want to take that into account to get our ducks in a row if we do a public hearing. There may be a new set of uniform standards coming for subdivision ordinance at subdivisions, but two things. One, it hasn't happened yet, so it's nothing to discuss. And two, I'm betting you it doesn't have as much to do with towns as it does with cities when it does happen. The state board, the ULCT is suggesting that we be careful for looking at condominium ordinances so that we don't get in trouble with people who say they want a condominium somewhere where we don't really want one to happen. And I think that that's something that was in our heads in all of this single family dwelling and how many is on a lot. So I think it's something for us to be very aware of, as in a condo might not be a bad thing in Bluff, but where or how many or things like that. So I thought that was an interesting little side suggestion. Here's a great one. Ordinances can no longer tell people that they cannot do water-wise growth. In other words, and HOAs. So an HOA cannot say, we require 2 feet of grass on every, no. If the landowner wants to put in xeriscaping or other things that are water-wise, they're allowed to do so. I mean, they still have to meet the standards of where the yard is and things like that, but ordinances and HOAs cannot stop water-wise growth, which is, planting, which is great, because we heard a story about one on the news where the guy wanted xeriscaping and his neighbors said no. You can regulate, here was an interesting one. You can regulate where food trucks go and what they have to do to be there, but you can't require them to show how they're going to meet those requirements. And it's the most bizarre wording of anything I've heard. It was House Bill 146, and it has to do with the idea that if town council has like a permit, a food truck permit, they come in, they can get that food truck permit. You can say to them, okay, you're allowed on the main drag or whatever, we allow them to be. And, but you must have running water and whatever. You can't ask them to prove how they're going to have the running water. You can, it's just this weird. So I think it's sort of up to town council and maybe planning and zoning, because I don't remember where we said food trucks, to determine if there's something that they want to do about that. If we have a festival, we should get all the food trucks in the world to come to it, great. But if food trucks start coming to our town during the season, where do we want them to park and what do we want to do about that? So I thought that was an interesting one. And the last one is what Amanda mentioned, and that is that the ULCT told us to be careful about billboards. And that is that the big deal is that there's a case in front of the Supreme Court, and I think this was all in that email that we got from Ann. There's a case before the Supreme Court that's going to determine if, in fact, we're going to be allowed to tell people where they can put these electronic billboards and the big ones and, whatever. So we're going to want to keep an eye on that, because as far as, and this is just personal, I do want some control over billboards. I don't necessarily think they're always terrible, but I want to know where they're going. So I think those were the highlights of what was said out loud that I went, really? Like every time I went, really, I wrote it down. So this is just an overview. And if, that's all I got.
Thanks, Marcia. Amanda?
First of all, wow, Marcia, thank you so much for attending and reporting back to us. That was really helpful. Very generous of you. And yeah, I have 2 comments. One with billboards, since our ordinance does currently prohibit new billboards, we should make sure that we're in compliance if something changes. And second, for the public hearing notice requirement to add a summary, when does that go into effect? Do you know?
Good point. I believe everything goes into effect June, or, in other words, the next cycle of stuff. So we'd have to look up, it's, did I write down the bill? I didn't write down the bill number. When they update all the codes online and stuff, we'll be able to see. But if we have a question in them, it's like soon. But I'm sorry, I didn't notice that. It would affect our I'm sure it would probably affect our next mailing, but all I'm saying is we would want to double check.
Thank you, Marcia. Anything else we need to discuss? Okay, well, I think that wraps up our meeting. Your turn, Ed.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of adjourning at 7:04, say aye.
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 Motion to adjourn passes unanimously at 7:05. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you for all your hard work. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Good night, all.
Aye.